There I am. Good morning, good morning. I see my sister in the chat. Hi, Lily. Thank you for being here. So it's Tuesday, another AA day. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me and see me. Ryder is still right here, right next to me. He just sat down. I don't know what it is, but when I go live, even with the other two dogs, they were always like right there in my face, especially Copper. Hard to believe that he would be 14 this month. Anyways, please be mindful in the chat and the comments. Just because somebody's in there doesn't make them the alcoholic. They may be here to support a friend or family member or my channel. So please be mindful of that and no judging each other. Please, please, please. And that's all I ask. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I do put in the description what we're reading, the page, the book, the story name, and all of that. So please, if you're trying to follow along, that is all there, except for I am in a 4th edition. So if you're in a different one, it's going to be on a different page. So just remember that. But anyways, 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, humbly made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So like I said, I put in the description what we're reading. So we're reading the big book right now. By the way, I love my husband. I've been wanting some earbuds. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but Raycon, I love them. They work great. And they are not in my ear, so I can still hear what's going on. So we're on page 501. It's Gutter Bravado. Like I said, if you're in a different edition, it's going to be on a different page, more than likely. So just so you know. And I did already read the first couple pages of this, but I read it on Thursday, but I'm going to reread it. So it's all at once. Gutter Bravado. Alone and unemployable, he was given 2 options by the court: get help or go to jail. and his journey towards teachability began. I was born in a major Midwestern city at the tail end of the baby boom. My parents were not well to do, but they were employed and pursuing the American dream in the mid 1950s. Dad was an ex policeman who had put himself through law school and worked with banks and as a real estate broker. Mom had graduated from a well known East Coast college, majoring in journalism, and moved west to marry my father and raise a family. Both were children of hardworking European immigrants. Growing up, my big brother and I went to church on Sundays and attended partial, whatever that word is, schools. We had plenty to eat and more than just the basic necessities of life. I was a smart but mischievous kid, and at some point I decided it was easier to lie than to suffer the consequences of my pranks. Dad was big on law and order, but especially didn't like liars. We often had conflicts. Other than this, my early childhood was a relatively happy one. Get out of the kitchen, Mr. Ryder. Ryder! It's always in the kitchen. Eventually, my brother went off to college and I started venturing into the world of my own. I enjoyed my friends and our many adventures. This is where my first experiments with alcohol began. Sharing a few beers or a stolen bottle with friends on Friday nights was my approach of maturity and adulthood. In school, I developed the reputation of never quit working up to my potential. I felt the world took things much too seriously, where I saw myself as fun loving and happy go lucky. It's 84 degrees right now. Wow, I'm going to be turning my air conditioner on here in a little bit. Others saw irresponsibility and insolence. A rebellious nature soon started to surface. In the mid-60s, I had the opportunity to visit my brother, who had a fellowship at a university in California. These were heady times, and my experiences were left a lasting impression on me. There was music in the air and dancing in the streets. Little wonder that after returning to the Midwest, I soon became a discipline problem. Disillusioned with what I saw as the mundane trivialities of school, I found it harder and harder to concentrate. I longed for the carefree life, but by the fall of 1968, after leaving 3 different schools, I decided I had enough. So I quit the books, packed my guitar, left home, and headed back to the West Coast, filled with the optimism of youth and intending to make a life for myself. My tiny grub state soon started to run out, and work was hard to find. I panhandled a little, but found I was too proud for it, or more likely not hungry enough. I began living hand to mouth, but my survival skills were not as sharp as I thought. In warmer weather, I camped in the woods near the coastal highway. The barking of the sea lions made it hard to sleep. With winter approaching, I roamed the waterfront and the streets, sleeping in storerooms in seedy hotels or flopping my migrant farm worker in town for their off season. What had begun as an adventure was turning into a nightmare. My moments of escape from this uncomfortable reality came when I persuaded someone to share their wine or vodka. With a drink in me, my confidence returned, my direction seemed clear cut, and I revealed in lofty plans and dreams for the future. Drinking to escape became as important as eating to survive. All of the gutter bravado and determination crumbled when, in the end, I ran up against the law. The authorities sent me packing back to the Midwest with nothing more than the clothes on my back. Arriving home, I dazzled my friends with extravagant tales of exotic people and strange happenings, some of them true. We went straight out drinking, and I picked up right where I left off. Always the object was to go out and get wasted. Though I sometimes had trouble holding my liquor, I was willing to try harder. I felt the key to success drinking was the same as it is in musicianship. Practice, practice, practice. After an attempt at college, I sought employment after often with a hangover. The jobs I found I considered to be menial. I did not yet know that all the work is honorable. The maintenance crew, the electroplating, the factory work, and the pharmaceutical industry. After emptying the trash, I started on the shelves where all on my resume. My thievery, tardiness, and abstinence, you know what it is. The reason for my dismissal wasn't on my resume. I was becoming generally dissatisfied, but I did not know that the problem was within me. I wanted some of the finer things in life, but upon realizing that took effort, I dismissed them as trappings of the establishment. Watching out for a bag of money by the side of the road was more my idea of planning for the future. In spite of my drinking, I managed to save a little money. With my first $1,000, I bought a motorcycle. With this, I purchased a lifestyle more than a means of transportation. For years afterward, I lived the biker lifestyle. At times raw and exciting, my existence revolved around building and drag racing motorcycles. Ride hard, live fast, and die young were the new rules. Weekdays I spent bar hopping the neighborhoods. Weekends would find me in the clubs downtown. As the years passed, my circle of friends grew smaller. Some died accidentally, some were killed, some went to jail, and some just developed the good sense to get out and grow up. These were the ones I didn't understand. I sure wasn't making any friends, so more and more I found myself a loner. In the mid 70s, I was hired by the steel industry, a union job at good pay. Soon I bid to a craft job and started learning the electrical trade. The work was hot, dirty, and dangerous. Everyone worked swing shift, and at the end of my turn, I felt as if I had survived an ordeal. The first stop was the tavern on top of the hill. Many times there was no second stop. Liquor was not the only recreational substance available there, and I was I was no stranger to any of them. This was where I got my first bar tab, so now no matter how broke I was, I could always stop in for a drink after work. While the guys around me were buying homes, raising families, and otherwise living responsibly, I was already having trouble keeping my utilities on and my car running. I saw to it that I paid my and bar tab, however. My life became the pursuit of intoxication. After a few drinks, I felt more normal and in control. I changed from a putrid loner into a party animal. My jokes were funnier, the girls were prettier, I shot better pool, and the jukebox played better tunes. I could look people in the eye and mingle with the best of them. Every so often, I took work elected college courses. Spending time with normal people, I began to see how wild I had become. My cherished individualism was turning into isolation. I had a growing uneasiness that I was in a vicious circle. I had no friends, only acquaintances. This fact was underscored by the bullet holes in my car. Curiosity, one acquaintance I had double crossed. My own sense of relief was in the bottle, but even that was beginning to fail me. My dreams had long since faded. My direction was unclear. My confidence lost, and the drinking would not resolve or resort or restore them as it once had. Personal hygiene became afterthought. There were times when I would try to live without drinking, but it was difficult, often ending at the most inappropriate times. I cleaned up for special occasions such as holidays, funerals, job interviews, and court dates, only to fail in the final hour, snapping back to the bottle like a rubber band. Planned abstinence was extremely stressful. The downward spiral of my life began making smaller circles. My driving record included many accidents and a ticket list that would raise a policeman's eyebrows. When I carried insurance, it was high risk. I grew sneakier and less outwardly defiant. Despite breaking laws routines for years, I stayed out of big trouble for the most part. A few times they almost had me, but I managed to scam on technicalities. Or I got yet another break. Finally, an indiscretion committed years earlier came back to haunt me. I was about to have a forced encounter with the federal judicial system. I began to feel like a clown juggling too many balls. Each ball represented a problem I was keeping up in the air. My arms were weary and I knew I couldn't keep on much longer. But I was not about to give up. My pride and ego wouldn't let me. Bosses, judges, coworkers, lawyers, car notes, bar tabs, loan sharks, utility payments, landlords, my girlfriend, people I had double crossed. I looked to all these as the source of my problems, while overlooking the most basic problem, my drinking and myself. I'd known for a long time that I desperately wanted off the merry-go-round, but I had no idea how to do it. The judges had no trouble coming up with a few ideas. However, I got house arrest with electronic monitoring and strictly supervised probation with random urinalysis for openers. 5 years in the penitentiary. Penetrate. I can't say prison. I think is what it is, but it's a different word. Waited after that. I still played the angels until it became clear to the authorities that I could not live up to the conditions of my probation. It didn't matter what the consequences were. I couldn't not drink and I gave up trying. When the court eventually called me in for my violations, they gave me two choices: get help or go to jail. After careful thought, I chose the first. Now, either they were going to send me someplace or I could send myself. I chose the second. And they gave me a week to make arrangements. Procrastinating to the end, it took me 3. This is when, once again, despite concern and at my lowest, I said the only prayer I still knew: God help me. If you got me out of this one, I'll never do it again. My life was finally out of my control. No longer the party animal, I was broke and my rent was overdue. I had dirty dishes piled in the sink and moldy pots on the stove. Bags of garbage and bottles were lined up by the door, and the toilet had stopped. Piles of stolen junk were sitting on the floor. I had been wearing my clothes much too long and except for a box of macaroni and cheese or a pot pie, I was not eating. When a knock came at the door, I would run into the bedroom and peep out the window to see who was coming to get me. Not drinking wasn't an option, but drinking didn't help. Such was my condition as I left the house to check myself into the hospital for my day of reckoning. Outside of being very nervous, I don't remember much about admission. because I was so loaded at the time. After a few hours, I began to feel safer. My apprehension slowly turned into relief. Maybe they could help me after all. I had no idea how sick I was to become. The first 5 of my 17 days in detox were hell. I could do little more than lie in bed. It had been years since I was sober that long. After a week, I felt a little better and began surveying my surroundings. I started my own counter evaluations. I found the doctors and nurses to be knowledgeable and professional, but I sensed that while knew much about alcoholism, they were they had learned it in books. They had not lived it. I did not need knowledge, I needed solutions. No one but the hopeless really knew what it felt like to exist without hope. The skeptics came out, searching for every loophole and excuse to pick things apart and to divert attention from my condition. My initial optimism was beginning to waver. Was this all there was? However, there was one man on the staff who seemed different. He seemed very comfortable and at ease with a bit of a knowledge or a bit of knowing sparkle in his eye. This guy was clearly not as stuffy as the rest, and when he told me his story, I was surprised to find it was very similar to mine. Only his was no secret. He mentioned being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. How could it be that he obviously had the respect of the staff after having lived a life of crime? How could it be that he was a lot like me but had made it back? Here was someone who was sober yet cool, humble yet firm in his convictions, serious but not without a sense of humor. This was one to whom I could relate and maybe even trust. He may have saved my life but by being there, and to this day he doesn't even know it. I had to risk my eyeball. Over the next few days, I still I was still not talking much, but I was listening and watching. I learned more, but I was listening. Oh, sorry. I learned more about how Alcoholics Anonymous worked and met more of its members. I found out it was not something they left at the hospital as they went home. It was a way of life. I found out it was spirituality, not religion. I saw them enjoying themselves, and they all agreed on one thing. If I wanted to change my life as they had changed theirs, I could, as long as I became willing to do what they did. I became fascinated. Here I was, the scum of the earth, yet they came to me and invited me to join them. I started to feel that if I was ever going to try something different, I'd better do it now. It might be my last chance. After all, I still had to deal with the authorities, and I had nothing to lose by playing along. I read their book. I started to work their steps, and With the door closed and the lights out, I asked for a little help from a higher power, as they suggested. Finally, they highly recommended that I attend their meetings, especially the first night out. I walked out of there on the sunny afternoon. I intended to go to a meeting that night, but I also had $10 in my pocket and a reason to celebrate. I was sober for 22 days and I was feeling pretty good about myself. Soon my old instincts began to take over. Sunny day, $10, celebration, feeling good. Before I knew it, I was walking into the back door of one of my old watering holes. The smell of alcohol hit me when I entered and my mouth watered. I sat down at the bar and ordered my usual ginger wash. Couldn't I make it just one day without drinking? At this last question, I realized that yes, since I put it that way, I probably could make it just one more day without drinking. Besides, I was going to a meeting that night, and who knows, they might have breathalyzers there. I put down my dollar, got off the stool, and walked back out the door. After all, I could drink tomorrow if I wanted to, and that's just what I plan to do. At my first meeting that night, the people fulfilled their responsibilities. They made me welcome. I met others like me and I felt good, or it felt good. Maybe this thing was for real. So I went to another meeting and I got the same feeling. Then another meeting. The tomorrows came and went. And to this day, I still haven't found it necessary to take another drink. That was over 6 years ago. The meetings gave me what my sponsor likes to call one of the most important words in the big book. AA put a we in my life. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. I no longer had to be alone. Fellowship and activity kept me coming back long enough to work the 12 steps. The more I did, the better I felt. I started hanging out with my sponsor and some active people at the meetings. They showed me how gratitude is something that is demonstrated, not talked about. Gratitude is action. They suggested I was lucky to still have a car, enough though it was a junker, therefore I might consider taking the less fortunate to meetings. They reminded me you can't teach anything to a know-it-all, so remain teachable. When old behavior started to creep back in, they called me on it. When life just didn't feel right, they talked about developing faith and relying on my higher power. They told me lack of power was my dilemma and that there is a solution. I take I took to AA immediately and believed a ch- like a child that if I leveled my pride enough to thoroughly follow their path, I'd get what they had. And it worked. Starting out, I just wanted to keep the authorities off my back. I never bargained for this program changing the course of my life or showing me the way to freedom and happiness. Still very impatient, I wanted the whole deal right away. That's why I related so well to the story about a wide-eyed new person and an old timer. When the newcomer approached the old timer, envying his accomplishments and many years of sobriety, the old timer slapped down his hand like a gavel and said, I'll trade you even. My 30 years for your 30 days. Right now. He knew what the newcomer had yet to find out, that true happiness is found in the journey, not the destination. So today, I'm much more comfortable with life as Alcoholics Anonymous has, has promised, and I know they're right when they say it keeps getting better. My circumstances have steadily improved as my spiritual life grows and matures. Words begin. Words cannot begin to describe the feeling in my heart as I sometimes ponder how much my life has changed, how far I've come, and how much there is yet to discover. And though I'm not sure where my journey may take me next, I know I'll owe it to the grace of God and the 3 words of the 12 steps: continue, improve, and practice. Oh, and one more thing. They told me humility is the key. Humility is the key. Be able to laugh at yourself. Be able to laugh at situations that you can't change, but you can laugh at that if it's nothing bad. But so first I panhandled a little, but found I was too proud for it, or more likely not hungry enough. I began living hand to mouth, but my survival skills were not as sharp as I thought. I panhandled for my alcohol. Um, the last time I asked one of my old neighbors, not where I live now, but a few years ago, I asked for a beer and they gave me tequila. That's when my eyeball happened. Um, so yeah, I did. I panhandled for change to get beer, and I'm not proud of it, but that's something I did, and I admit it. So my moments of escape from the uncomfortable reality came when I persuaded someone to share their wine or vodka. That's exactly what I was just saying. Is I did. Hey Tony, I did. Like I just said, I asked the neighbor for beer and whatever alcohol they had, and I'm not proud of that, but a lot of them know that I am sober now, and um, I'm glad. She's commenting over here. I love you. She says she loves you, Lil. She loves you too. So I was becoming generally dissatisfied, but I did not know that the problem was within me. I wanted some of the finer things in life, but upon realizing they took effort, I dismissed them as trappings of the establishment. So I I wouldn't get a job while I was drinking, But after I quit drinking, a few years after, anyways, no, I'd say the same year. No, it would have to be the next year because I quit drinking in November. So in April of that next year, I got my first actual full-time job. I love that job. I would go back to that job any day if I could. Um, but I got my first job, and I was realizing that I can do this. I can support myself. And Tony Lil. And so I did support myself throughout that whole summer, and I was just a summer worker because it was hosting. But my husband got on through the winters as well, so we got to stay up on the mountain all year, which was nice. And we were able to do that a couple years. Um, but yeah, and at times, raw and exciting, my existence revolved around building and drag racing motorcycles. Ride hard, live fast, and die young were the new rules. Weekends spent bar hopping. I didn't do that stuff, but I did do the bar hopping once in a while, but not very often. Because when I got into my alcoholic days, I drank at home. I didn't go to bars. I had given up on bars years and years before. Um, but yeah, I stopped going to bars really for there was nothing to do there, and if I wanted to get stupid drunk and dance at home, I could, um, and not embarrass myself. Maybe. Some died accidentally, some were killed, some went to jail, and some just developed the good sense to get out and grow up. Like I said, I did the drinking by myself, pretty much. I'm my sister and her husband, and then my husband would drink with us, but he wasn't like me. He didn't drink all the time or a lot. So he was lucky on that spot, and I was lucky on the spot that he wasn't. So when we got together, he was an addict, and he quit everything for my son, my oldest son. He called him dad, and my husband quit drinking and not quit drinking, but he quit doing all the other activities that were not good. So, but yeah, he's been sober for September was, or this coming September will be 30 years. So yeah, 30 years ago he gave it all up. But yeah, I'm proud of him for that. So another spot is my cherished individualism was turning into isolation. I had a growing uneasiness that I was in a vicious circle. I had no friends, only acquaintances. That's how it felt for me. I did have a couple of friends. Um, so I had like 4 friends that I actually, would see and talk to and all of that. But yeah, I stopped hanging out with people. I isolated myself at home to drink alone, unless if my sister came over, and then I had them to fight and argue with and get in confrontations, and eventually we stopped drinking together, and I started drinking by myself. It was rather boring, but I up until I did my I drank daily. Binge drink. I'd stop for a couple days and then go back to it. And it was not a good cycle of life. It was my downward spiral. And I had one of my best friends just completely walk away. Or I walked away and left that friendship. I was like, nope, my alcohol is more important than that. And that's what happens. But I also have learned making amends to such people. It it may not resolve the issue of being friends. You may still not be friends, but just apologizing for your part in whatever happened, that is fine because we're doing it for us. We are making amends for ourselves to uh, help us get over it. And, sometimes people can accept it and sometimes they say no. And so um, I know that I have made amends to such people. I've been thanked. And, you know, I have a person that needed to make amends to me that is passed on. So, you know, you don't always get to change your life before it's too late. And it's a downward spiral of my life began making smaller circles. Yeah, it did for sure. The first 5 of my 17 days in detox were hell. I could do little more than lie in bed. It had been years since I was sober that long. After a week, I felt a little better and began surveying my surroundings. I started my own counter evolutions. I found the doctors and nurses to be knowledgeable and professional, but I sensed that while they knew much about alcoholism, they had learned in the books. They had not lived it. I did not need knowledge, I needed solutions. No one but the hopeless really knew what it felt like to exist without hope. So me, I got sober in Bonanza, Oregon. I had been living there for, I'm going to say 7 or 8 months. And I was off grid, which was nice. I loved it. I would go back if I could. But my sister called me one time while I was working out there on the property. It was a friend's property. Um, and she called me and I was like, don't call me when you're drunk. And that hit me like a brick because I used to say that to our father. Don't call me when you're drunk. And he would never call because he was always drunk. But then I said it to her and I was like, I can't tell her that because I do the same thing. And so I decided that I was going to get sober. I didn't know nothing about detox. I had no clue what I was going to go through, but it was freaking scary, and I went through it by myself. It was really really hard to stay still, especially when I would drink a little bit here and there before I completely quit, and then I was like, nope, that's it, no more, and um, nobody knew that I quit drinking except for me, and my husband and my son, my youngest son. But I had made that decision like 3 months before I quit. And so I quit drinking, and I was still that same person. But I did do the detox, and it was hell. It was really hell. Um, but I detoxed since then for caffeine. I stopped drinking soda, but I drink it now. I went back to that habit. But another thing that I didn't know that I would feel detox symptoms for was cigarettes. Man, let me tell you, holy moly, I had the shakes, I had the chills. I was like, why am I doing this? What the heck's going on with me? And, all right, love you, Lil. She said she got to go. Um, but I went through that detox for alcohol, for cigarettes, for soda. And not only did I detox from cigarettes, I also ended up detoxing from coffee. Now, I took Chantix to quit smoking. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, so it's not sponsorship. But it made coffee disgusting to me. I could not stand the taste of regular coffee. I had to have a different creamer, a different type of syrup to put in it, something else besides. Oh, you're still here? Okay. I had to put something else in it besides French vanilla creamer. I could not do it. And I still to this day have problems drinking French vanilla coffee. But yeah, so I detox from those things, and it is not easy to do. And he had the nurses and stuff to help him go through it. And sometimes people need that help. I was just lucky enough that I had people watching my every step. Being on a piece of blank property and not knowing where snakes and lizards and all those things were. Um, and working on a blank piece of property with all kinds of dangers in it or on it. Yeah, I had to be watched. Um, but I had a good friend at that time watching, and I had my husband watching, I had my kids watching, and but detox was hard, and I won't sugarcoat it. It was really really tough to deal with and hard to go through for all of those things that I have quit in my life. And um, would I go back to drinking? Absolutely not. Will I go back to smoking? I prefer not to. Um, Alcohol causes health issues, and it causes havoc. It causes stress, depression, anxiety. It makes it all heightened or completely stamped out. For me, growing up, I was bullied, and I really didn't have that many friends growing up in school. I had a couple of really, really good friends. I'd say 3. Besides my sister. But I was bullied other than that. My sister was bullied as well. And so having that alcohol bring me out of all of those things made me confident. And then when I finally ended into the full-blown alcoholic, it became a problem. And I thank my friend for saying, hey, let's go to AA. Thank you for that. I'll never forget that. I'll always remember that text that came across my phone. Let's meet at an AA meeting. And so I've been part of AA ever since, and I will always be a part of AA. And this is my service work right here, and telling people about my story and sharing what AA does and how it works and things that have changed for me in my life of sobriety and being a member of society and working. I have a job now. I work weekends, and I don't like my job. It's not easy, but it's still a job, and it's part-time, but it pays what I need it to pay for. And if I have to, they always post extra jobs, and if I want to pick up some shift somewhere, I can. And sometimes they have an available shift of 4 hours or 5 hours, and so I can do that if I need to. And so but yeah, I'm really proud of my sobriety, and it comes first in my life, and helping others with theirs. And so thank you, Tony, for being an awesome sponsor and helping me to become 11 years sober. And my sister is coming up on 11 years sober too. So but with that, I'm going to go ahead and say the Serenity Prayer. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. And if you're new here, welcome. Feel free to chat in the comments or live stream chat. But yeah, and subscribe. I will be live again on Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And hit the notification bell so you get notified of the next one. So with that, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys.